today we're talking, obviously, with a great American and the entrepreneur, Bernie Marcus. And it's just incredible when I was listening to you today about the phenomenal amount of change and transformation that you've enabled for the United States and for business in America and globally. And I thought to myself when I was sitting there today, how did this happen? How could you enable this kind of solution and change back in 1978? What brought you to this kind of?
Well, you don't even know the extent of it. Let's think about it a second. In 1978, if you looked at it, a homeowner, typically, if he wanted to do something in his house, he would have to get go to a plumbing store, an electrical store, a lumber store, a hardware store, and so on and so forth. And prices were pretty high, and so typically if something had to be done in the house, they would have to get a professional to do it, which means a plumber, electrician, everything else. It was our concept that if we could have a store big enough to incorporate all of those things, hardware, lumber, electrical, at prices that were significantly lower, and I'm talking about a third lower, 1/3 lower, that these people, and then if we hired professional people like carpenters, like plumbers, like electricians, and teach homeowners how to do it themselves, that we could help America and grow a great business. And by the way, that's exactly what happened. What happened was that we actually changed America. We invented the do-it-yourself business. People now don't think about calling a plumber. They can do it themselves. All they have to do is go to Home Depot, find out how to do it, buy the material themselves, and do it. If it's an extremely difficult job, then they have to bring in an electrician and etc. For plumbing, I'm sure you don't want to rip up the walls and do the plumbing, but for typical things, you could do that. In addition, we recognize the fact that what about the contractor? The contractor had the same problem. He typically had to go to one place to another, and time is money for these people. If we could put it all under one roof and again sell the price at a third less than the prices, that would have a big impact on America. Well, it has. Today we have over 300,000 employees, or 330,000 employees actually. Probably 10 million people have worked at the Home Depot, people who worked there and then left the company, etc. We've helped create major manufacturers that were small manufacturers when they started with us that are now major multi-billion-dollar companies. And they all hire and have their own people. So we've changed America. And I've said in public speeches that between the Home Depot and Walmart, we brought down prices in America as opposed to the Congress that has raised prices in America. So we've done more for America, actually, than most people have done. So yes, we created an industry. We've helped to generate tremendous returns to our investors, which is great. And because that's the American system. That's what it's all about. And we think that a lot of the housing industry came out of the Home Depot, people who buy an old house and refurbish a house by themselves. And I cannot tell you, thousands upon thousands of people have written me letters and talked to me about it, where they actually went into business because of the Home Depot. So, hey, listen, it was a great experience for everybody, and the success for myself and my family and all of the associates that I was associated with is terrific, and it's wonderful.
And that's
the American dream, by the way.
It absolutely is, and that's one of the things that sort of brings me to you or attracts me to your work, is that it's the Horatio Alger story. It's you came from a place where you were of, as we had just described, unimportance, if you will, to the world, now to extreme importance, and this this journey that you've been on. It's a hero's journey. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. I want to know what happened at Handy Dan's.
Oh,
you know, is this where it started?
No, yeah, I was fired.
So you're fired.
I was fired, and I was fired because it was I was the CEO of that company, and it was owned. We were a subsidiary of a big company, and the big company was in bankrupt. We weren't. We were at a great business. We had a fabulous business. I started it with 4 stores and took it to 80 some odd stores. But the guy who ran this company hated me and fired me. And so it's the first time in my life I'd ever been fired. I'd always been very successful at what I did. And I decided I never want to work for anybody again. and the results are the Home Depot. I mean, actually went into business. I had this idea in my head. It was percolating for about 3 or 4 years. And fortunately, I found somebody by the name of Ken Langone, who now came up and said, let's form a company, and I'll get the financing for you. And then I enlisted Arthur Blank to become my partner in this thing. And we just had some great people that over the years that work for us. Our associates are the best in the world. I was in the stores yesterday. I saw people that are 26 years, 20 years, 15 years, people that I personally trained who just love what they're doing every day, love to come to work, enjoy what they're doing. And so what better thing can you have in your life than the success of not only your own success, but the success of all these people that work for you? I think it's great.
And that's what I'm thinking of. There's 3 main things I think about: people, process, and operations. And you know, at this time in 1978 to 81, when you went public, you were probably doing a great deal of all 3, designing, developing all 3 for your organization, bringing on 300,000 plus employees, over 1 million contractors throughout the world. And, you know, this is incredible. How did you do this? Was it through your talent? Was it through late nights?
No. I would like to say I'm a genius. I'm a genius. There's no question about it. No, I had the one good ability, and that was to surround myself with people who were great. I always felt that if I surrounded myself with people who were smarter than I was, that they would make me look even better. And that's exactly what happened. I surrounded myself with people who are hardworking, industrious entrepreneurs who didn't agree with me on everything, fought with me on things that they disagree with me on. I loved that kind of atmosphere. It was a free-flowing atmosphere. We were partners together in our lives. If we made it, we were all going to be successful. If we didn't make it, we were all going to go down with the ship. And so everybody chipped in, everybody worked their hardest. And if anything, I will tell a story of a success is based on how smart you are and how the kind of people you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people who do this all day, you're going to be in deep, deep trouble. You might as well talk to a mirror and do it without people. And many CEOs do that. They don't want dissent. They can't emotionally, their egos can't take it. We were fighting for our lives, and egos went out the door. This was necessity, and we felt that we work off each other, and we developed a relationship, this working relationship, which was a great relationship. I was never Mr. Marcus, ever, ever, ever. My name was Bernie, that was it. Everybody was first name. Arthur Blank was not Mr. Blank, it was Arthur. And so we all conducted that kind of business. When I went to the stores, I didn't wear a shirt and tie and jacket. I wore an apron the way everybody else did, and I waited on customers along with everybody else. So this is the atmosphere that we had at Home Depot, and that atmosphere continues today. I left the company in 2002, and it's no different. Frank Blake, who is now CEO of the company, has taken all the principles that we operated with and has continued it and made it even better than it was before. First of all, our office is not called the corporate office. It's called the Store Support Center, which means that everybody works there understands that they work for the stores. The stores are our business. Anybody who talks to our customers, that's our business. Our customers are the most valuable asset that we have. And we don't own our customers. We have them on loan. And we have to treat them, give them the kind of service that you heard today. You heard people say, it's a great store. I love the store. The store is a wonderful store. People are wonderful. I go into competition. The people are not any better than your people, are not anywhere near as good as your people. Right. Well, that's what we thrive on. That's what we built the business on. And so when you have that kind of atmosphere and that kind of culture, you're going to have a successful business. And Home Depot is successful. It's making records every quarter. They're doing better and better and better, and they're outshining the industry. And it's because of leadership and, of course, and the quality of the people that are running the business.
And it's continuous, quarterly.
And there's no question about it. It's continued. It's not seamless. For 5 years, we had a leader by the name of Nardelli who was a disaster, and he proved to be a disaster because he went back on every principle that we have and just did the opposite of what we did. And fortunately, he left, and now this new CEO came in who's just wonderful, Frank Blake, and he's continued all the policies and added to it. He's taken whatever we did and he's made it much better using his own initiative and his own brain. So it's a wonderful story that hasn't. The end of this book has not been written, and so it's just in the middle of the pages.
I hear that, and I think it's about the founder's legacy. It's about that vision that you had in the beginning in '78 that endures today, that got through that rough period that after you left, and now.
Yeah, because people who were there, they wanted what we had before. Yeah. They didn't want what he was trying to instill in them. Yeah. And the minute a new leader came in and said, let's go back to the old days. Let's treat people like human beings. Let's treat people like we care about them. Let's treat our customers like we care about them. And that's really the legacy. The legacy is we care for each other and we care about the customer. We care about each other and we care about the customer. And that is the one legacy. That's the name of the game. And by the way, it's not up here, it's here. Yeah. It's in the heart. Yeah. And so all of our people believe the same thing, and therefore the customers end up having the kind of atmosphere that they have in the stores where people really want to help them, really want to show them something. And not that we're perfect. We could be better, I'm sure, but we're better than anybody else out there, without a question.
Well, we talk about head and heart leadership. It's an important concept. I want to move to education for issues for a second. Out of 1,000 people that are in the pool for hiring at Home Depot, only 50 are accepted.
Yeah, because illiteracy and drug. How can you hire somebody who doesn't know how to read or write? How do you hire somebody that can't do math? Simple math, simple math. In our business, math is a very important thing. The ability to speak to people intelligently is critically important. You're speaking to a customer's nose to nose, and you've got to be able to be intelligently discuss it with them. We're finding that the public schools are not producing kids like this. And I'm not saying across the board, I'm saying, but generally, we are so low down in the curve of having a basically good education in this country. It's really pathetic. I'm involved with charter schools, and I can tell you firsthand that the kids that come out of charter schools are much more prepared to lead in the world, and most of them are minority kids. I think that what we have done to the minority kids in America today is just shameful. It's just shameful. And we continue to perpetuate it. We're more concerned about how much a teacher makes than what they produce in the classrooms. And that's sick. And it's sick for this society. And this society is going to pay for it in years to come. We're dumbing down our kids, and we're doing, and we're opening more charter schools, but they're fighting us day and night. They're trying to close us. Look what's happening in New York City. New York City, you have a mayor that wants to literally close all the charter schools. The only chance these kids have to get ahead, and he wants to close it. What kind of stupidity is that?
Well, let's talk about solution.
The solution is you have a competitive edge, you open charter schools, and eventually the public schools will, either they can lose all their kids or they're going to get better. And I think that competition is very healthy in everything you do. And so I think that the answer is to produce more charter schools, and then those teachers who are part of this union that are more concerned about their own salaries than they are about the kids will begin to understand that they're going to lose their kids and they're going to have no kids to teach eventually, because charter schools, what parent, given a choice between a charter school and going to a regular school, would not pick a charter school? Not many. Not many. In fact, they have to have contests on how to get into a lottery before you can get into a charter school. So I think that as they become more prolific, charter schools, and by the way, they're not all successful, but today unsuccessful charter schools are being closed. Many close every single year if they don't come up, if their kids aren't being taught properly. It shows up in the test scores, and they close. They close. But if you're going to make the public schools better, it's going to be because of this kind of competition. I have no other answer for you. This is the only answer I have. Competition is great, and competition will change education in America eventually.
And I think that's a theme that we've been talking about, is that competition is good. Various challenging positions help to form consensus. And you've shown that in your Israel Democracy Institute. You've shown that in your various philanthropic efforts in bringing together factions and helping others to come to a conclusion, really, and come to a positive, sustainable solution for children, for education, for warring factions even in Israel. Just to talk about that for one moment, how do you see Israel changing in the next 10 years? I'll tell you why I ask. I talked to Benjamin Netanyahu about 15 years ago, and I asked him the question, how are we going to create peace in the Middle East? Simple question. He said, Lou, it comes down to one thing: bread on people's tables. Arabs, basically, in Israel, Arab Israelis don't have as much as Jews. In your Israel Democracy Institute, you help bring that to fruition so that there is consensus and there is an awareness about this economic disparity. Tell me more about it and what it's done to achieve that kind of consensus.
Look, like every society, Israel is not a perfect world. It certainly isn't. When you spend the kind of money that they have to spend on defense of their country, it's the highest percentage in the world because they're threatened constantly. Well, that takes away from things that you might be able to do economically. Economically, Israel is doing better than most countries in the world. I mean, certainly better than third world countries, but in the world of second world countries, their economy is kind of flourishing because of the brain power that they have, because of the astuteness of the students that they have, the education system. But it leaves a lot to be desired. And until there's peace in the Middle East, until that enormous amount that's going into keeping a standing army, having to fight this constant battle that's surrounding you with, it doesn't go back to the public as it should. A lot of it should. But in order for us to survive, Israel has to remain strong, because once it's weak, it'll be overrun without a question. Now, peace in the Middle East is not only, it's going to come around through bread, but it's got to come around through love and not hate. And when the Arab world stops teaching hate in their schools, which they teach that it's right to kill Israelis, that it's good to kill Jews, and they grow up with this hatred in their heart, there's going to be no peace in the Middle East. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So they have to change their schools. Ultimately, they have to understand that the amount of time and effort and energy that they spend in hating Israel, if they turned around and put it back into the soil and put it back into what they do. Look, all you have to do is go to Israel and then go across the border, and you go from paved streets to beautiful buildings to a flourishing economy to dirt, filth, you know, and all those things that carry with it, and uneducated people. And all you did was cross a border. Well, what does it tell you about their civilization? They have to start learning that they have to take care of their people first, rather than teaching their people to hate. They grow up, they're teaching them to hate so that they don't overthrow their regimes. If they can take their emotions away. So I disagree with Bibi. I think that Bibi, yes, Israel will solve its problem by putting food on the plate. The Arab world will not, unless they start changing, and I don't see anything changing them. I just don't see it.
And I know education is a theme throughout this, as well as looking at the United States. And I know your opinions on Obamacare and, of course, fiscal conservatism. I realize that you're liberal as a Republican only for social issues, of course. And I wonder if there's some lessons to be learned from Israel in terms of their education. Their education system and how they flourish.
No, they have the same. They have a problem with education system in Israel. The one thing that Israel has, they have the problems of every civilization. Look, that's not a panacea. I'm not blind to the problems that they have in Israel. They have crime in Israel being done by Israelis. I mean, it's a world. They're taxi drivers. They have guys driving garbage trucks. It's another world. And they have issues there as well. The whole thing goes down on how much The one thing that they do have that I think we should have here is conscription, where everybody has to serve in the Army. One of the reasons that they've turned out to be as brilliant as they have in the internet world is because everybody, and eventually the Orthodox as well, has to serve in the Army, and they all learn a trade in the Army. And when they come out mature people. They're mature. You speak to an Israeli that's come out of the services, and these kids are serious about and they go into colleges, then they go into education. They don't party the way they party here. They don't have what we have here. You know, give me the beer, all the beer I can drink. They don't do that there. They're serious. They've already been through a war. They've already faced people that want to kill them. Many of them have been shot, and many of them have been killed and wounded. So when they come out, they're more serious, and they are now the leaders of Israel. And look, they're more mature, and they're able to deal with issues in a more mature way, but they also grow more industries. I mean, they're bright, they're smart, and they've learned trades. They've learned how to read, write in the military. So don't separate that world from the education world. They have a lot of Israeli Arabs, they have a lot of Orthodox Jews, and they have a lot of poor Russian immigrants, Ethiopian immigrants, where the schools are not up to par. They may be as good as they are here in the States, which that means not up to par.
One of the things that I've also noticed that you've taken some of those practices to bring to Home Depot, and I'll mention the one that rings in my mind. You brought now 1,000 Home Depot employees are National Guard. Are in the National Guard, and they're overseas in Afghanistan, they're in the Middle East, they're serving. And so is this part of what your vision is, to enable them to have that kind of extraordinary experience? Yeah,
listen, no, I think that every kid that comes out of public school should be serving in the military. That's my personal opinion. I mean, I've seen what's happened in Israel, and I think it's not popular, and of course, liberals hate that because they hate the military anyway, so why would I want to send my kid into something I hate? But they don't understand by taking a kid who has no abilities whatsoever, has no discipline whatsoever, doesn't understand morality or any compassion about anything, and take them in and turn them into fighting men and women with a sense of belonging and patriotic sense of what this country means, and really an understanding of what this country means. That how good this would be for them. I know it because I've known many families who were kids who were just very difficult to deal with, went into the military, came out just exemplary, are now the best citizens you could ever imagine. So I think that we're lowering the amount of people in the military now. We're actually weakening our military, and we're just going the opposite direction. So that's a whole other discussion.
Understood. I do want to dive.
We can't go on too long. I got to get out of here shortly.
Can I have 5 more minutes?
You got it. Go ahead.
Okay. Colonel Gary Kaiser in the Pentagon talks about the incidence rates of suicide for National Guard troops.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you're contributing to helping with veterans after they come back?
Well, we actually. We started a program called Operation Share at Shepherd Center in Atlanta. We've taken care of 300 military people, ex-military people, kids that came out with traumatic brain injury, people have come out with paralysis, and we actually are the only organization in the United States that we're aware of that has a program specifically geared toward the ex-military of helping them. And we've had I think success, as much success as you possibly can have. Originally, we started that, and I actually started it, Operation Share. We thought that we would be able to spread this through the United States, but the military is not willing to pay for it. The Defense Department is not willing to pay for it. So every kid that we take care of, we lose, I don't know what the number is, an extraordinary amount of money because it's one-on-one treatment. So we actually have to raise money every year to take care of these kids. Our government is not prepared to take care of them. We could take care of slobs that don't want to work, that never worked a day in their life, drug addicts. We could give them all the money in the world. But our own military, we don't take care of. It's kind of a shameful. It's really pretty shameful thing. And we have so many programs for people who don't do anything to deserve it. And here the people we have really deserve it, and they can't get the money. So here we have to raise money every year to take care of these kids. We should be taking care of 1,000 kids. We should be having this kind of an organization, and nobody wants to do it around the country. And the reason they won't do it is because it's a money loser the minute you do it. The minute you take a veteran in, the minute you take a guy in who has post-traumatic stress syndrome, he's an alcoholic, he doesn't sleep at night, he's abusive to his family, he's angered, he's irritable, he can't hold a job, he's an alcoholic. Who wants to waste time? Who wants to deal with that? Well, why wouldn't we? I mean, why wouldn't we? We should take care of these kids. That's our obligation. They went to war. That's a volunteer army. They went to war to fight for us, to keep us free. And we have that obligation. And as a country, we haven't done it. We just haven't done it. And the Republicans and Democrats are all the same. They talk a lot, but they don't really do anything. So the private sector should do it. And I think that the private sector is now stepping up at a level that we haven't seen before, which we're quite happy for. And hopefully we're going to be able to help these kids a lot more in the future. But more has to be done.
Yeah, and it is about community and belonging, as you said, bringing their hearts and minds together after they've been to war, and they're with their band of brothers, sisters afterward. Yeah. So I think that is a big part.
Yeah, and I tell you, Home Depot, along with a lot of other companies, have set up programs to take care of these kids. But remember, they have problems. They have problems. They have these issues that they're dealing with. You hang around long enough and you have bombs going off next to you, 10 feet away, 20 feet away. You don't have a healthy mind. So trying to get them healthy and functioning as healthy human beings so that they can earn money to take care of their families and themselves and not be a vassal and not be, on a public payroll for the rest of their lives. You want to make them self-sufficient human beings, is quite a feat. The private sector is stepping up to this. I will tell you, in a lot of areas, I'm very proud of a lot of philanthropists that are doing this now. And we're doing, my own foundation is doing, in addition to Operation Share, we're doing some other things along this line to try to help them. And so I think that it's a positive move.
If you could say one thing to the executive branch, Congress and Senate, to bring them together toward action so there's not so much apathy and boats going in the wind, and as you had described in previous interviews, what would you say to them to get them to a place of execution?
I think that I could say whatever I say to them. They're all politicians. They listen to you. Some of them you make an impact on. Most of them you don't make an impact on. But I would say to America that we have to stop sending lawyers to Congress, that we have to send business people to Congress, people who understand what the real people are going through. When you're in business, you're dealing with real people. When you're a lawyer, you're not dealing with real people. You're really dealing with a different level of people, and it's not the same thing. In a business, you have to make payroll. You have to be a politician with your people. You have to do PR. You have to understand human resources. You have to understand economics. The people in Washington don't understand any of those things. They really don't. We have some business people. We have some doctors there who have been dealing with patients and people. I think of one, Representative Price from Georgia, who I know very, very well, who is a very, very honored physician. He thinks his healthcare business is the worst thing that's ever happened to America. How? Because he's dealt with it. He knows what it's all about. He knows what's happening with it. So I think that long term, it's to get qualified people to run for office and stop running these professional politicians for office who don't have a sense of what's happening outside the limits of Washington. Washington is a society among itself, and it doesn't represent America. And they don't go back home enough. When they go back home enough, they go through the process, but they don't really listen to anybody. So I think that the only way we're going to change Washington is by changing who represents us. That's the answer to your first question.
Yes, absolutely. It's about the talent again. We always come back to talent. Last question. We talked about the City of Hope, and when you started out, you gave $1,000 a year, and you went on their board of directors. And this started your whole efforts around philanthropy, around getting involved. It's not just about signing a check. It's about the doing.
Right.
And so for entrepreneurs, for any person starting out or working hard, or just anybody out there who is a leader, what would you say to them, kind of to really begin that effort towards success and execution?
Well, it's very simple. When you run a business, so you run anything, you're a professional. I don't care what it is. You put your time and effort into making it successful. My advice is don't go into 50 different things. Go into one or two, but put your energy behind it, put your thoughts behind it, put your effort behind it. To too many people, it's a question of being able to say, well, I'm on that board, and what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything to me. As I said during the meeting, most boards are made up of business people who, the minute they go sit down in a nonprofit, lose their brains. I mean, they just forget what made them, and they don't look at budgets, they don't look at management, they don't look at inefficiency, they don't look at objectives, and which they did in their business, but then they get into a nonprofit, they take a dumb pill, and it's just the opposite. So I think that business people should take their acumen and understand that charity is a business in itself. It has to raise money, which is the capital that it gets, and then efficiently try to do what they're trying to do in the most economical fashion and get the most bang for the buck. In other words, if I go to an organization and they get for every dollar, 40% of the dollar goes for overhead, that's not very effective for me. That's not an effective organization. So I would have to look at the management, the objectives, everything else that goes into it. And if that's the kind of results, who would go into a business where 40% would be overhead? I mean, that's crazy. No business works that way that I'm aware of in the United States. There are some where only 10 cents on the dollar goes. 10 cents on the dollar. Think about that, how insane that is. And I can't tell you how many there are like that. There are thousands of charitable organizations like that. Well, it's not very effective. So my advice to business people is get involved. Get involved. That means get involved. That means look at the books, look at the management, look at the board, look at the decisions they make, look at the operations, look at the payrolls, look at the budgets. Do all the things that you did in your businesses, and now translate it into this 501c. You're trying to do something good. Why would you want to do it with half a hand? Would I ask you to go into a fight and hold one hand behind your back? Of course not. Well, in charity, why would you do that and actually put a penalty on yourself when you start? It's a handicap. It doesn't make any sense.
And they're connected as well. I mean, when you do by making this charity better and more efficient and more effective, you're going to help more people, and that's where the reward comes in. The reward of helping people. Every one of these charities has a good reason for being there, and so you join that charity because you want to help people do whatever it is, a better education, health, mental hygiene, psychological, whatever it is. There's a return on invested dollars. You would want to get the most out of the dollar that you possibly can, because dollars run everything. And so get involved, use your brain power, make it as efficient as your business, and you'll get more out of it.